Last time we had discussed malarial parasites or Plasmodium, which is included in protozoa category. Today I'm going to move on to multicellular metazoa, also known as helminths. Taenia species are included in this particular category. Taenia is a genus, Saginata and Solium are the species. By the end of this session, you should be able to enlist cestodes of medical importance, discuss the mode of transmission, pathogenesis, life cycle, and laboratory diagnosis of Taenia species. We are also going to have a brief look at some of the important characteristics of Diphyllobothrium latum. You must be familiar with this classification by now. Parasites are broadly classified into unicellular protozoa and multicellular metazoa. The metazoa further has got two phyla, phylum Platyhelminths and phylum Nemathelminths, and they are differentiated on the basis of shape, sex difference, alimentary canal, and body cavity. Now, in case of phylum Platyhelminths, the shape is flattened leaf-like or tape-like, and if we talk about phylum Nemathelminths, they are elongated, cylindrical, and they have unsegmented bodies. Sex difference. The phylum Platyhelminths are mostly hermaphrodite, which means sexes are not separate, whereas in case of phylum Nemathelminths, sexes are separate. The alimentary canal in case of Platyhelminths is incomplete or entirely lacking, whereas the alimentary canal is complete in case of phylum Nemathelminths. If you talk about the body cavity, now it is absent in case of phylum Platyhelminths and the body cavity is present in case of phylum Nemathelminths. These Platyhelminths are further divided into two classes, class Trematoda and class Cestoda. Now again, we are going to see the differences on the basis of shape, sex difference, and alimentary canal. Please remember, body cavity is absent in both of these classes. In case of class Cestoda, they are tape-like, they are segmented, whereas the trematodes are leaf-like and they are unsegmented. Sexes are not separate in case of Cestoda, that is to say they are hermaphrodite. The trematodes are also hermaphrodite, but there is one exception, which is the schistosoma. Now, in case of schistosoma, the sexes are separate. If we talk about the alimentary canal, in case of cestodes, the alimentary canal is absent. In case of trematodes, it is present, but it is incomplete and there is no anus. So let's quickly enlist few of the phylum Platyhelminths. So class Cestoda includes Taenia species, Diphyllobothrium latum, and Gynecoccus granulosus, and then is H. nana or Hymenolipes nana. And the class Trematoda has a very important parasite, which is called as schistosoma. And then there are other trematodes as well, but the most important one is this schistosoma species. I'm going to talk about various forms of Taenia. There is an adult form, the larval form, and the egg form. Now let's first have a look at the adult form, which is also known as the adult worm, and it has three main parts: the scolex, neck, and the strobila region. Now the scolex region is known as the head region. It may have this protrusion, which is called as rostellum with hooks. There are suckers, and there is the neck region, and then is the strobila part, which is the segmented region. Now this segmented region may be immature, and it's also known as proglotted, by the way. So the immature segment is not going to have differentiated reproductive organs. So the mature proglotted segment is going to have reproductive organs, and the last part, which is the distal part, the distal proglotted segment is going to have gravid uh, area, that is to say that the uterus is filled with eggs. And if you remember, the sexes are not separate, they are hermaphrodite. So this is a very important finding. So basically there would be no separate male and female. Now if we talk about the larval form, this is called as Taenia cysticercus, and it is the resting stage of larva in the intermediate host where it develops into a bladder worm. So it consists of a hollow vesicle-like structure with invaginated scolex on its wall, and there is a central cavity containing latent fluid. So this scolex is the future head of the worm. Then is the egg form. Now if you talk about the egg form, please remember it is bile stained, and that's why it is brown in color. And there is a thin outer transparent shell, which is actually called as the eggshell, and this is the portion which is known as embryophore. This is the embryophore portion. Between this eggshell and embryophore is the yolk material, and sometimes what happens is that this eggshell is so thin that it is lost before egg reaches the exterior along with feces. In such cases, this embryophore becomes thick and it has got radial striations. As you can see over here, these are the radial striations. This is the embryophore part. And they are radially striated for protection. The embryophore is thick, and this protection is for the contained embryo actually. So there is oncosphere, six-hooked hexagon sphere is called as oncosphere. So there are three pairs of hooklets, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or 6 hooklets. So the oncosphere is defined as a six-hooked hexagon embryo inside the egg. So as I've mentioned before, Taenia is a genus and there are two species, Taenia solium, Taenia saginata. The alternative names are pork tapeworm in case of Taenia solium, beef tapeworm in case of Taenia saginata, and this is related to their mode of transmission. Now, in case the structure of Taenia saginata, again there is an adult worm, and as you can see, this adult worm is about 5 to 10 meters long. This is the minute head, and if you magnify this, there are 4 suckers, but there are no hooks, no rostellum is there, which is present in case of Taenia solium. The ova of both of these species are indistinguishable, so the structure is almost the same as I've mentioned before. Now, if you talk about this uterus, it is going to have lots of lateral branches, and there are around 15 to 30 branches on each side. They are thin and dichotomous in case of Taenia saginata. And the vaginal sphincter is present in case of Taenia saginata. Now, if you see the difference of Taenia solium from Taenia saginata, so this is the biggest difference, and this is the presence of rostellum with hooks. The suckers are also there. And again, the egg is indistinguishable. If we talk about the lateral branches, they are about 5 to 10 on each side, and they are thick and they are dendritic. The vaginal sphincter is absent in case of Taenia solium. Epidemiology and mode of transmission of both Taenia species. So the epidemiology is related to mostly the eating habits. So where the beef is commonly eaten, you're going to find this Taenia saginata disease, related disease or infection, and where the pork is more eaten, so you're going to have Taenia solium infection. So these are the modes of transmission. And if we specifically talk about the endemic areas, they can be in Africa, South America. Okay, the adult worm lives in the small intestine of humans. The eggs or gravid segments, they are passed out in feces on the ground, and the animals like uh, cow or buffalo, they may swallow these eggs while grazing on the field. And on reaching the alimentary canal of these animals or the intermediate host, the radially striated walls of these eggs are going to rupture and oncospheres are released. Now, these oncospheres would penetrate the gut wall with the help of their hooks, and they would gain entrance to the uh, portal vessels or mesenteric lymphatics, finally reaching the systemic circulation. Usually, they travel via the portal vein and they can reach the organs like liver, right side of the heart, lungs, left side of the heart, and systemic circulation. The oncospheres are filtered out from the circulating blood into the muscular tissues where they ultimately settle down, and then they are going to further develop, and these oncospheres would now lose their hooks on reaching their destination. So the cells in the center, they are liquefied, and from each of these oncospheres, an oval vesicle-like structure appears, and the lava is at the bottom, and this is actually called as cysticercus. Now, this is known as cysticercus bovis in case of Taenia saginata and cysticercus cellulosa in case of Taenia solium. The human beings are infected by eating either contaminated or undercooked beef or pork containing these cysticerci, and they reach the alimentary canal of the humans, where the scolex, on coming in contact with the bile, is going to actually exvaginate, and it would attach to the gut wall by means of its suckers, and then develops into an adult form by producing lots of strobila. So the worm is going to have sexual maturity in about 2 to 3 months, and it would start to produce eggs, which in turn are again passed in feces with the fresh white opaque colored gravid segments, and therefore the cycle would be repeated. Now, this is the text version of what I have just explained in animals or the intermediate host. So the adult one would be in the small intestine, and after sexual maturity, the eggs and the gravid segments are passed in feces. The animals are going to swallow this, oncospheres are released, and they would reach the systemic circulation. They would settle into muscular tissues and would form a structure which is known as cysticercus. Now, it is known as cysticercus bovis in case of Taenia saginata and cysticercus cellulosa in case of Taenia solium. In humans, after ingestion of the contaminated pork or cattle, it would reach the alimentary canal, would develop into adult worm, and this is going to sexually mature and would release these eggs and gravid segments again, and the cycle would be repeated. Pathogenesis of Taenia. Now, if we talk about the adult Taenia, it is going to cause little damage, if any, in small intestine. And if you remember from the life cycle, the larval forms of the Taenia saginata are not present in humans. So they just develop into adult worms. Clinical features of the Taenia saginata. Mostly patients with adult tapeworms are asymptomatic, but malaise, cramps may occur. They can be vague abdominal discomfort, diarrhea, alternating with constipation. They can be chronic indigestion, and the disease is called as teniasis in case of Taenia saginata. I'm going to stop here, and we are going to continue our part 2 of this lecture next time. Thank you.